What's up, reefers? Mike, Main Reef. So I had a couple of questions the last couple days. Um, One, just somebody asking me to go over my reactor again. Um, One of the biggest things is right now, I don't want to say it's turned off because it's not turned off, but I have the photo period time down to about an hour and a half max. Mind you, this reactor is quite large for the system. So it can quickly pull nutrients out of it relatively quickly, and that's what it was doing. So, is it something that's absolutely vital to everybody's reef tank? Probably not. But I think that it helps a lot in the beginning phase to smooth things out, I guess you would say. A lot of overfeeding, corals aren't, taking up nutrients and stuff like that. So, basically, the reactor is, I can't remember what company it is off the top of my head, but I think Aquamax makes some. It's just a cheap like media reactor. It needs to be clear. Best thing to do is just have it crystal clear as you can possibly have it, and to then buy LED grow light strip, which I think is like a 16-foot one on Amazon. It doesn't come with a power supply, so you do need to buy a power supply. But the way I bought it is I bought my reactor and pump off eBay, used, from somebody who used it as a biopellet reactor, which is what it was made for. I think it was like $50, I think, shipped. Then the 16-foot LED strips were, I don't know, like $15 plus power supply, which I had here. And then it was really just like miscellaneous tubes from my local hardware store and some elbows, which were probably 10, $15. And I put it all together, and it really, it does some pretty mean work. At first, I couldn't keep Chaeto in it, so I built like a little basket. Let me see if I can't pull it out for you. So that's the little basket. It's just some knitting mesh that I zip tied together. I put it inside, and it started to grow turf algae and everything else on it, and I was fine with that. That's what I was going to run for the longest period of time, but then all of a sudden the Chaeto started growing from what I had left. I mean, I must have had probably 10 strands left, and that was it. But they did start growing, and they grew great, and it's been growing great. Let me just take a quick little pan inside here. I'm turning my closet light on, moving my tripod, so bear with me. So again, I'm not running the system right now, but as you can see, it still has Chaeto in it. It's only on, I think, like I said, an hour and a half? Not even. It's on for an hour every night. And that's just because I didn't want to shock the system and pull everything out of it. Turn that back off. It's on a simple timer right there. Nothing crazy. But basically what was happening is it pulled pretty much all nitrates right out of the water column, and my phosphates were climbing, not where I wanted them to be. So I started cutting back so that I could try and get some nitrates in the system, and I started using GFO, a small amount at first, and still at a small amount. But I use API test kits, so I can't see ultra low numbers, but sorry, I keep saying but numbers were low, but not zero, if that makes any sense. So like on the test kits, you have 0 and then 5 nitrate. And then on phosphate, you have 0 and then 0.25 phosphate. So that's a large range, especially when you have a mature system like this. I call it mature. It's a year old now. But again, I look for how are the coral doing? Is my flow good? Is my light good? Has my chemistry been good? Have I been slacking anywhere? I don't really look so much for the numbers per se. The only number I really pay attention to is my pH, because I kind of have this belief in my head that a pH of 8.2 to like 8.4 is really like your go-to area. Your coral are in much better health in that area. They're more so growing than just surviving, which I think is a big thing to focus on for a lot of like newer hobbyists. Is you want to have your corals growing and thriving, not just surviving, which is one of my biggest things. Do I still have issues? Of course. My forest fire digi is still with like a semi-green skin. Polyps are out. They're red. They're not great. But everything else has great polyp extension. I have lost 2 coral, I believe, over the last year. One of them was a zoophrag out front. It was like a pink lemonade. It just melted away. My guess is that the nutrients being so low, it just didn't have anything. But all the other ones, as you can see, fantastic. I did lose a Possilopora, I think, at the beginning. Right when I got them at the same time as this stylo. Now this stylo was down to, I don't even want to, I'd say less than 1/8 of an inch heads, 2 of them. And I just put it in the sand bed, let it do its thing, kept doing my stuff, my water changes, all that. And it really came around. Bubblegum Digi, I got that from my buddy Paul. It's been looking great every time. I gave a piece to 207 Nano Reefing, Levi, and his tank just wasn't ready for it yet. And that's fine, you gotta test some things out. But it's good to have a buddy who has, frags kicking around to be able to test out. And other than that, looks great. I got the red digi right here. That thing is crazy. I just got it as a little piece, just a little frag, set it on the plug. It's completely encrusted the plug, and now it's encrusting the rock. But yeah, I mean, the tank, if you can keep your nutrients relatively low, not completely bottomed out, but relatively low, I think you'll have a lot of success in the first year, especially with like a nano reef, because they fluctuate so quickly, and if you can keep those nutrients from fluctuating so quickly, big win in my book. But back to the reactor. It's nothing crazy. Sorry about the orange look, and I don't recommend ever using metal if you can get away with using like plastic, but these are not in the water at all. They never get touched by water, so I'm not really worried about that. I would say, if you have like an issue, also don't use this stuff. I have it in here for other reasons, just so that it's away from the I use it for my PC, which is next to me. Clean stuff with that. But never use metal. Geez, I can't even think of it. Hose clamps in water, especially salt water, corrode in no time. But again, these have been on the tank for a year. Like literally, that one's the closest one, and it has no rust. So if you can use zip ties, do it. So less than $100 with the pump, lights, everything, and it's quite massive. I mean, it's a big reactor for this system. You're talking probably half gallon of water volume, I'd say. It comes out right here, which is my first chamber. You can see it. Oh, maybe not. You can see the pump right here. And all I have in this first chamber on this system is I have a bag of carbon, a bag of GFO, and on top of it, I have my filter floss that I cut myself. It's like a 20-minute process of cutting it yourself, nothing crazy. But water comes out, gets into the pump. I have a ball valve, never used it, it's always been wide open. Goes over, let me turn the light back on. Goes into the top, and you can see the tube in the middle right there. Comes out the bottom and then goes up. And there's a little plastic grate at the top that kind of stops the Chaeto from going in. It's not fine mesh or anything like that. So, but this balls up, so it doesn't. You shouldn't have like pieces coming out. And then returns to the middle chamber, which is where I have my heater, which is also where I have my auto top off, DIY auto top off, which does do my Kalkwasser as well. I also have my Apex water sensor, which will basically tell me if I have too much water in an area, if it's going over, which I don't want. But it's basically just a quick here to here, and then the return goes in. Does it work? Yes, works great. Works too great for the system. I've had to dial it way back, which is fine. You know, I want that. I want the system to be able to sustain itself. That's what makes it a healthy ecosystem. Another thing is a lot of people get worried about like algae and, you know, stuff like that comes in the tank. Algae is a big issue, especially for newer tanks and even older tanks. My thing is keep a healthy cleanup crew, ones that like to eat, and I don't think you'll have an issue. It's weird to say, but like I think a lot of reef keepers like the idea of having like minimal this, minimal that. When I tell you there is a cleanup crew in here, I'm telling you there is a cleanup crew in here. I have a sea urchin, I have one Mexico turbo snail, I have 3 hermit crabs, I have 2 emerald crabs now to be able to help with the bubble algae and stuff. And I think I put in like 3 or 4 margaritas, and they have now spawned to have about 200, I believe, in here. And they've been sustaining that population for quite a while now. Also, the turbo snail, when I put the turbo snail in, it spawned as well. And I have probably 10 turbo snails in here. When I got my Chaeto from my buddy Paul, his Chaeto was like filled with life. I mean, pods and Nacera snails and all kinds of stuff. So he was like, "Do you want all that?" I said, "Of course I want all that." Like, that is the life of a reef tank, is the stuff that you don't see is really the life of the tank. You know, the little stuff down bottom that's getting eaten up by everything. And that's why I'm convinced that like this system is hard to overfeed in a way, because it's got such a cleanup crew that everything's getting taken care of. And I don't know, it's just that's always been my mindset, is that you really don't need to have the perfect tank, in my eyes, like algae wise, when you can just, you know, increase your cleanup crew and they'll probably take care of it, and you won't even ever see it. Like, I never see patches of algae anymore. The rocks look semi-great. I mean, they always have looked relatively new. Sorry, I'm turning off my reactor light. But, you know, nothing crazy. And on a bigger system, that reactor will probably be something that would have to stay on a little bit longer. And I'm going to keep it for, you know, future systems. All my whole hobby career has been basically reusing, resourceful, just keeping the stuff that is probably going to be needed in the future. One of those things, my RODI system. I've had that RODI system for 10 years now. And I just, between, different tanks that I've built, and I knew it was something that was needed. If I ever get back into the hobby, I don't want to have to spend that kind of money again. Just little things that help your success over years that are something that you're just not going to know in your first year or whatever when you're doing it. But back on subject. If you have a nutrient problem in your system, I would recommend some kind of refugium or a reactor. Some way you can grow an algae outside of the system, the main display system here, that won't have any kind of growth in here if that's what you're having for an issue. I've seen some people who do it in the middle chamber. They scrape the little black, it's like honeycomb, off the back, and they put a light right on the back glass. And I think, honestly, that's probably your best bet, because it's not a huge chamber where your Chaeto isn't just growing to, a half gallon and just sucking nutrients right out of the system. So it's something you probably have to do, weekly, pull out some Chaeto or whatever, but I think it's definitely possible, and I think it's a big help to a lot of people that are new in the hobby, is to be able to have a fooge and a reactor of some kind that will be able to take care of nutrients, keep them low, and to be able to also house snails and pods and all kinds of stuff. But that's pretty much about it where I am on the refugium light. Not refugium light, but it is a refugium light in a way. But on the reactor, it has been cut way back to an hour a night. I had it on for 12 hours opposite time to help with like pH and stuff throughout the night and stuff. But in reality, it's just way too good at what it does for this tank. So I might have to take it completely offline, but that's fine, because the next system I build, it will be used for that. So that's basically all there is. The last time I checked nutrients, my nitrates were between 0 and 5. They weren't completely 0 and they weren't completely 5 on the color scale, so I went between. Phosphate, same thing, between 0 and between 0.25. Now, again, those tests are pretty inaccurate for what they are, so it's just a number. I'm not worried. I'm more worried about how the coral looks. Do the coral look all right? They look great. So that's my thing. I think that's a lot of something that people should focus more on, is not chasing the number, but actually chasing whether or not the coral looks healthy and good. But I hope that helps with the reactor question I had in the comments. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Let me know if you got any questions. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Shout out to all the subs. You guys have been awesome. I can't even believe that the tank has almost 100 subs now. Like, it blows me away. But yeah, let me know in the comments. Take her easy. Sorry, take her later. See you guys. Bye.